The sound of footsteps echoed through the empty street, mingling with the distant barking of neighborhood dogs. A faint breeze swept through the dark, quiet neighborhood of Anderson Hollow, pushing trash along the cracked pavement. The night felt heavy, like a storm was about to break. At the corner of the street, a black SUV sat with its headlights still on, casting a long, sharp shadow. The engine hummed softly, but no one inside moved. Around the corner, an older man, his face lined with age and worry, ran as fast as his legs could carry him. His glasses were bent, his clothes disheveled, and there was a smear of blood on his pant leg. He gasped for air, his breath coming in sharp bursts, panic flashing in his eyes. He had been walking down the street when a group of teenagers, high on fumes, decided to mess with him. The fear was clear on his face as he glanced behind, seeing them gaining on him. 5 of them. They yelled and laughed, taunting him as they ran. "Hey, old man. Hand over your wallet," one of them shouted, his voice thick with mockery. "You look like you're loaded. Give us something, huh?" Isaac, the older man, had no choice but to keep running. He didn't know these streets. All he could do was hope that he could get away, but the gang kept closing in, laughing like it was all a game. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it, a small fenced lot with a sign that read "Vere's car wash open early, close late." The lights were still on, and Isaac saw a chance. His heart pounded in his chest as he veered toward the gate, slamming his hand against the iron bars. He rattled it desperately. "Please. Help. Someone," he called out, his voice hoarse. The thugs behind him were still shouting, but Isaac didn't care. He needed help. Inside the house next to the car wash, a young woman named Maggie stood by the kitchen window, wiping dishes. The sounds of the chaos outside drifted into the house, catching her attention. She paused, wiping her hands on her apron, listening carefully. "Please, help me," the voice cried again. She turned, glancing through the window, and saw the man, his eyes wide with fear. Without thinking, she moved closer to the window, her heart racing. But just as she was about to act, the door to the kitchen swung open. Her stepfather, Hank, stepped into the room, his eyes narrowing as he saw her standing there. "Maggie," he snapped, "what are you doing? Stop gawking out the window. Finish your chores. You know you've got plenty of work to do." Maggie stammered, trying to speak, but Hank wasn't having it. He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Who's out there? What's going on?" "There's a man. He needs help," Maggie said softly, almost whispering, her voice shaking. Hank's face twisted with irritation. "So what? Let him be. Probably a criminal, or worse. You always want to butt in where you don't belong." Maggie bit her lip, her stomach sinking. She wanted to help. She could see the man out there, shaking and desperate, but fear of her stepfather kept her frozen. Hank's temper was unpredictable. She knew better than to defy him. "He looks like he's in trouble," she murmured, barely above a whisper. Hank slammed his hand against the wall, the sound sharp and loud. "Mind your own business, Maggie. You always get in the way, making things worse." Maggie flinched, knowing what would come next if she didn't keep quiet. The belt, the shouting, the bruises. Outside, Isaac kept pleading for help, but Hank wasn't having any of it. He marched out of the house, his boots heavy against the ground, and kicked the gate hard enough to rattle the metal. Isaac stepped back, startled by the violence of the movement. "Who are you?" Hank growled, his voice cold. "What do you want?" I just need help," Isaac stammered, trying to steady his breath. "I'm being chased. Please, I just need a safe place to hide." Hank didn't hesitate. His eyes flicked back toward Maggie's window, where she stood watching, torn between helping the man and staying out of Hank's way. "I'm not helping you," Hank sneered. "Get lost." Isaac stood frozen for a moment, shocked by the coldness in Hank's voice. But he knew better than to push. He turned quickly and stumbled away, trying to find somewhere, anywhere, to hide. Maggie's heart broke as she watched him leave, unable to help him. She wanted so badly to open the gate, to let him in. But Hank was right there, watching her every move. He'd punish her for even thinking of helping. She returned to the sink, tears slipping down her cheeks as she finished her chores, her thoughts consumed by the man outside who needed help. Her heart ached for him. And as Isaac disappeared into the night, a single question lingered in his mind, the same question that had started it all. Why did she want to help me? The answer, he would discover soon enough, was a truth that would change everything. Maggie's gaze lingered on the spot where Isaac had disappeared, her heart heavy with unanswered questions. She would never have imagined that saving a stranger from thugs would lead her down a path that would unravel everything she thought she knew about her life. The days after the incident by the gate felt heavy. Maggie couldn't shake the image of the old man, his eyes filled with desperation and fear. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, his face, his voice, his plea for help. But it wasn't just the man she couldn't forget. It was what he represented, the kindness and warmth she'd never felt from Hank or Cassandra. The harsh words of her stepfather, Hank, still echoed in her mind. Mind your own business. You don't know that old man. She knew she had to keep her head down, keep her distance. But something inside her told her she couldn't just let it go. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was because she had never known a stranger who looked at her with kindness. Maybe it was because, for the first time, someone had asked for her help, really needed her. The morning after Isaac's desperate plea, Maggie woke early, unable to sleep. She got dressed in the worn-out house dress she always wore, picked up a rag, and went outside to start her work at the car wash. The sun was barely up, and the lot was empty, save for a few old cars waiting to be washed. Hank was already inside, counting the day's receipts, his eyes narrowed in concentration. Maggie felt the weight of his stare even from across the yard, but she forced herself to keep working, focusing on the cars and trying not to think about the man she turned away. But there was no avoiding it. "Hey, Maggie," a voice called from behind her. She turned and saw Jimmy, one of the other workers, approaching with a mop in his hand. "You good? You don't seem yourself today." Maggie offered him a weak smile. "I'm fine, Jimmy. Just tired, that's all." Jimmy didn't look convinced. He was a good kid, young, bright-eyed, always trying to make light of things. "You know, I don't blame you for not helping that guy last night. Hank would have had your head if you did. He's a jerk like that." Maggie's stomach turned at the mention of Hank, but she didn't let it show. She looked away, pretending to scrub the same spot on the car window. "I know," she muttered. "It's just, I feel like I should have done something." Jimmy paused, watching her for a moment before speaking again. "You're a good person, Maggie. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. Trust me, I know how it is around here. People like Hank, they take the best parts of you and crush them. But you're stronger than that. You'll figure it out." Maggie didn't respond. She couldn't find the words. But his kindness made her feel just a little bit lighter. Maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for her. Hope that she could escape this life. A few hours passed, and the lot began to fill with cars. As usual, Hank barked orders, making sure everyone stayed busy and kept up with the work. It was the same routine every day. Hustle, hustle, hustle. There was no room for rest, no space to breathe. Then, just as Maggie was washing down a truck, she heard it, the sound of an engine purring to a stop in front of the lot. She glanced up, half expecting it to be another customer, but the car that pulled up was different. It wasn't a beat-up old sedan or a family minivan. This was a sleek black SUV, the kind that didn't belong in Anderson Hollow. The door opened, and a man stepped out. Maggie froze. It was him. The old man. The one she hadn't been able to forget. Only now, he wasn't wearing the ragged clothes she remembered. He was dressed in a suit. His face looked more refined, his posture straighter, as if he'd just stepped out of an entirely different world. He walked towards her, his expression soft but determined. For a moment, Maggie thought she imagined him, but then he stopped in front of her. His gaze was kind, but there was something behind it, something she couldn't quite place. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of something more. "Is this where they wash cars?" Maggie blinked, unsure of how to respond. She was still caught up in the shock of seeing him again, this time in a completely different context. Yeah, it is," she replied slowly, trying to steady her breath. He nodded, glancing around the lot. "Good. I need to get my car cleaned up. But, it's not just the car I need help with." Maggie furrowed her brow, confused. "What do you mean?" The man's eyes softened as he took a step closer, lowering his voice. "I know you probably don't remember me, but I remember you." Maggie's heart skipped a beat. You remember me." He smiled, a faint but knowing smile. "Yeah, you helped me last night. I couldn't forget that. I couldn't forget you." Maggie's throat tightened. The moment she'd been avoiding was here. This man, this stranger, was not just a random person she had helped. There was something more, something she didn't understand yet. Before she could say anything, Hank stormed out of the house, his face a mask of anger. What the hell is going on here? Who's this? The man turned to face Hank, his posture not shifting in the slightest. I'm Isaac Lawrence, he said firmly. And I'm here to speak with Maggie. Maggie's heart raced. Who was this man, and why was he here? Hank's face went pale, and for a brief moment, Maggie thought she saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it came. You're what? Hank sputtered. Who the hell do you think you are? She doesn't need anything from you. Isaac didn't flinch. I'm her father, he said, his voice steady. And I'm here to take her. Maggie's world tilted. She could hardly believe the words she was hearing. Her father. This man was her father? But how? She glanced at Hank, who was now standing frozen, his mouth open in disbelief. Maggie's mind raced, but her body remained still, rooted to the ground. Isaac extended an envelope, holding it out to Hank. Here's the proof. If you don't believe me, you can read it yourself. Hank took the envelope, his hands trembling. He ripped it open without a second thought, scanning the document inside. When he read the results, his face went from disbelief to pure rage. Cassandra, who had just stepped out of the house, walked over and stood beside Hank, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. No, Hank growled, his voice filled with venom. This is a joke. She's my daughter. I raised her. Isaac remained calm, his eyes never leaving Hank. Not anymore. Maggie stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. She had no idea what was happening, why this man, Isaac, was claiming to be her father. But the words were out there now, and nothing would ever be the same. The sun was setting when Maggie sat down on the old wooden bench by the car wash, her mind spinning with questions. Isaac, the man who had once been a stranger, begging for help, now stood before her, claiming to be her father. She barely registered the sound of the cars passing by, the hum of the neighborhood, or even the distant bark of a dog. Her world had shifted on its axis, and she was left trying to hold on to whatever fragments of reality she could. She could still feel the tension from the confrontation earlier. Isaac's calm demeanor had made Hank falter, but Maggie could tell that Hank wasn't going to let this go easily. He wasn't the kind of man who backed down from anything, or anyone. Maggie had expected him to yell, to get physical, but instead, he had stood there, silent and trembling. He couldn't argue with the DNA test. It was real. She was Isaac's daughter, not his. Now, as she sat there, her hands trembling in her lap, Maggie wondered why Isaac had never come for her before. He'd been around, at least once, in the guise of old Gus. She had met him as the old man who tried to fix the broken vacuum, who'd been kind to her in a way she had never experienced from Hank or Cassandra. But what was this really about? Why hadn't he told her the truth right away? And if he really was a father, why had he stayed away all these years? A gentle voice broke through her thoughts. You all right? Jimmy asked, appearing beside her, his brow furrowed with concern. Maggie shook her head, trying to push back the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. I don't know what's going on, Jimmy. I don't even know if I can believe any of this. He sat down beside her, looking down at his worn shoes before meeting her gaze. I get it. That's a lot to process. But you gotta trust the facts. That test. It's real. He's your father, Maggie. She nodded slowly, her heart heavy with doubt. But why now? Why after all these years? Why did he wait until now to come for me? Jimmy didn't have an answer. He just sat with her, his presence offering a comfort she hadn't expected. It was a reminder that, despite everything, there were still people who cared. But the more she thought about Isaac, the more questions bubbled to the surface. Who was he really? And what did he want from her? The next day, Isaac showed up again, this time in a sleek black suit that made him look even more out of place in Anderson Hollow. He walked up to Maggie, who was finishing a car wash, the sound of the hose water mixing with the hum of her thoughts. I need to talk to you, Maggie, Isaac said, his voice softer this time. I understand this is overwhelming, but I want you to know I'm not here to force you into anything. I just want you to know the truth. Maggie stopped what she was doing, her hand still holding the hose, but her mind miles away. The truth, she repeated, her voice tight. The truth about what? Isaac took a step closer, his eyes filled with something Maggie couldn't place. Regret? Hope? About why I've been gone all these years. Why I didn't tell you sooner. He paused, then added, and about your mother. Maggie felt a chill run through her. What about my mother? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't tell you everything, Isaac said quietly. She didn't want to. I wasn't the kind of man she needed me to be. And I failed her. And you. Maggie's heart pounded. Her mother, Mary, had always seemed so distant, so careful with her words. Now Maggie understood why. She had kept something from her, something important. I don't understand, Maggie said, her voice cracking. If you're my father, why didn't you ever come for me? Why didn't you care enough to be in my life? Isaac's gaze dropped to the ground. It's complicated, Maggie. More complicated than I can explain in a few words. But your mother, she was everything to me. I was a different man back then. A selfish man. And when you were born, I wasn't ready for the responsibility. I ran, and I left her to raise you on her own. I was wrong, and I know that. The weight of his words hit her like a punch to the gut. She couldn't process it all, couldn't wrap her head around the idea that her father had known about her all these years, but had chosen to stay away. And worse, that her mother had kept this from her, choosing to protect her from the pain of the truth. Why are you here now? Maggie asked, her voice raw with emotion. Why after all this time? What do you want from me? Isaac reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick envelope, holding it out to her. I'm not here to take anything from you, Maggie. I'm here because I owe you an explanation. I owe you a chance to make your own choice. Maggie hesitated, looking at the envelope in his hand. She knew what it was, or at least, she thought she did. A document that would prove everything Isaac had just said. But something in her was scared to open it, scared to face whatever truth lay inside. Her hand reached out, trembling as she took the envelope from him. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Isaac's voice was soft, understanding. You don't have to make any decisions today. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Maggie stood there, the envelope heavy in her hands, her mind racing. As she turned back toward the car wash, she realized that no matter what she decided, her life had already changed. She couldn't go back to the way things were. But the question was, where did she go from here? Maggie couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so lost. The envelope Isaac had handed her weighed heavily in her hands, but it wasn't the physical weight that troubled her, it was the burden of everything it represented. The truth, the lies, the years of missing pieces. Everything in her life, everything she had known, was suddenly called into question. She stared down at the envelope, not yet daring to open it. The cars whizzed by on the street, the sun now high above, but everything felt distant, as if she were watching it all from behind a glass wall. Her thoughts swirled, tangling together in a way that made her head hurt. What was she supposed to do with this? She had always been told that Hank was her father. He had been the one to raise her, the one to give her everything. Well, at least that's how he'd seen it. And her mother, Mary, had always kept her distance, never talking about her real father, never telling Maggie anything about her past. She had spent years trying to please Hank, trying to prove her worth, even as he treated her like an afterthought, like a mistake. He made sure she never forgot she was just a stepchild. And Cassandra, her own sister, had been no better, always quick to mock her, always reminding her of the things she couldn't change. But Isaac was different. His eyes, the way he had looked at her when he came to the car wash, had been full of sincerity. He wasn't here to take anything from her. He only wanted to give her the truth. And that truth could change everything. Are you going to stand there all day? A voice broke through her thoughts. She looked up to see Jimmy, who had walked up to her without her noticing. He was holding a rag in his hand, ready to get back to work, but his face was filled with concern. Maggie swallowed hard and glanced down at the envelope again. I don't know, Jimmy. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Jimmy stepped closer, lowering his voice. Maggie, listen. You can't keep holding onto the past. I know it's tough, but you gotta face it. Whatever's inside that envelope, it's your truth. You deserve to know it. Don't let fear keep you stuck in this life. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and pain. She wanted to trust him, wanted to believe that opening that envelope wouldn't break her, but she wasn't sure. What if it made everything worse? What if the truth was something she couldn't handle? But deep down, she knew she had to open it. She couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that she could live in a world where she didn't know who she was or where she came from. It was time to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. With trembling hands, Maggie tore open the envelope and pulled out the paper inside. Her heart pounded in her chest as she scanned the words. The DNA test results were clear. Isaac Lawrence was her biological father. It hit her like a freight train. Her mind raced, her body numb as the shock set in. All this time, all these years, and the man she had known as her father wasn't really her father. Hank, who had raised her, who had taught her everything, who had punished her, wasn't the one who had given her life. The world around her seemed to spin out of control. Isaac wasn't just some stranger. He was her father, the man she had seen as nothing more than an old man with a kind heart. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. She pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm herself, but the weight of everything felt like it might crush her. "Is it true?" Jimmy asked, his voice barely a whisper. He had seen her reaction, and now he was waiting for her confirmation. Maggie nodded slowly, still processing everything. "It's true. He really is my father." Jimmy didn't say anything at first. He just looked at her with sympathy, and for a moment, they both stood there, in the quiet of the car wash, each of them lost in their thoughts. Finally, Maggie took a deep breath. "I can't keep living like this, Jimmy. I can't stay here, pretending that everything is fine, pretending that Hank is my father. He's never treated me like one." Jimmy nodded, understanding. "You've got a chance, Maggie. A real chance. This is your life. It's not about Hank or Cassandra or anyone else. It's about you." But Maggie wasn't sure if she could walk away from everything she had known. What would her mother say? What would the neighbors think? Would she be abandoning her family if she chose to go with Isaac? Just as those questions began to cloud her mind, she heard the sound of a car pulling into the lot. She looked up, expecting to see a customer, but her heart skipped when she saw Isaac's black SUV again. He got out of the car, his eyes locking with hers as he walked toward her. This time, there was no mistaking it. He wasn't here just to talk. He had come for something. He had come for her. Maggie felt the weight of the moment. It was time to decide. "Are you ready?" Isaac asked, his voice quiet but firm. He had seen her with the envelope and knew she had made her decision, but he needed to hear it from her. She stood there for a moment, torn between the life she had known and the unknown future that awaited her. "I don't know if I'm ready," Maggie said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't keep living in the shadows. I need to know who I am. I need to know where I come from." Isaac smiled softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "I'm here, Maggie. You don't have to do this alone." Maggie felt the weight of her decision, but her heart was already pulling her toward Isaac. Could she leave everything behind and take a chance on a new life? Or would she stay in Anderson Hollow, buried beneath the weight of her past? The car ride was quiet, but Maggie could hear the hum of the engine in the background as she sat beside Isaac, her mind spinning faster than the tires beneath them. She could hardly believe she was doing this, leaving behind everything she had ever known. Anderson Hollow, the car wash, Hank, Cassandra. It all felt like it belonged to someone else now. The decision had been harder than she expected. Leaving Hank, despite everything, felt like a betrayal. He had raised her, or so she had thought. But Isaac had come into her life like a bolt of lightning, shaking her foundation and offering her something she never knew she needed: truth. He had given her the key to unlock a door she didn't even know existed. She turned to look at him, sitting there next to her in the driver's seat, his expression calm and steady. He didn't seem like the man she had imagined all these years, the father who had abandoned her. He looked nothing like the old man she had known as Old Gus. He was refined, confident, and very different from the man she had pictured as her real father. But in his eyes, she saw something familiar, a sense of responsibility, an offer of something she had never truly received. And that made it harder to resist. The pull of something better. Something real. Isaac glanced over at her, catching her gaze, and smiled softly. "How you feeling?" he asked, his voice calm. Maggie let out a long breath, her eyes focused on the passing scenery. "I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to process it all. This is a lot to take in. But I'm also relieved, I think." Isaac nodded. "I know this is a big change, but you don't have to do it alone. I've got you. We'll figure this out together, step by step. Maggie's heart ached at his words. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that he would be there for her, that things would be different now. But everything about this felt like stepping into the unknown, and fear gripped her heart. What about my mom? Maggie asked quietly. She's still back there. She didn't come with me. Isaac's expression softened. I know. And I'm sorry she couldn't join us right now. She's been through a lot. But I promise, we'll make sure she's taken care of, too. We'll make sure she has a future, one where she doesn't have to live under Hank's shadow. Maggie nodded slowly, her mind still clouded with doubt. It was hard to let go of the life she had known, even if it had never truly been hers. She glanced at the envelope in her lap once more, the DNA results that had shifted everything for her. It was proof. Isaac was a father. And yet, a piece of her still couldn't believe it. The car passed through familiar streets, ones that Maggie had walked 1,000 times, but this time, they felt distant, foreign. As they left Anderson Hollow behind, Maggie felt like she was closing a chapter in her life, one she had always struggled to understand. When they arrived at Isaac's place, a sleek building that towered above everything Maggie had known, her stomach twisted with uncertainty. She stepped out of the car, her eyes wide as she took in her new reality. Isaac watched her closely, as if waiting for something, before he spoke again. This is just the beginning, Maggie. We'll make it work. I'll show you everything you need to know. But this is your life now. Your chance. Maggie took a deep breath, looking around at the modern, glass and steel building before her. It was so different from the car wash, from the life she had known. And yet, something in her knew this was where she was supposed to be. I don't know if I can do this, Maggie admitted, her voice shaking. I don't know if I'm ready to leave everything behind. Isaac walked over to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to be ready. I'll be here to help you. You're not alone in this. For the first time in her life, Maggie felt like she had a place to stand. A place where she wasn't just a servant, a daughter with no worth. She was someone. She was Maggie Lawrence. And maybe, just maybe, she could find her own way in the world. Later that day, Isaac sat down with Maggie in his office, the high-rise view stretching out behind them. As he explained more about the business and his plans for her, Maggie's thoughts drifted. Her mind went back to Hank, to her mother, to the childhood she had lived. She could still hear the echoes of Hank's harsh words, the sting of Cassandra's taunts. But she could also hear Isaac's voice, steady and sure, telling her that she was worth more than what they had ever given her. After a while, Isaac placed a stack of paperwork in front of her. This is yours, he said gently. You're my heir now. The future of this company is in your hands. But you have to decide what you want to do with it. I'm giving you the keys to your future. The rest is up to you. Maggie's eyes went wide. The weight of it all pressed down on her, but this time, it felt different. She wasn't being asked to clean someone else's mess or hide in the shadows. She was being asked to step up, to take control of her life. And for the first time in a long time, Maggie felt a spark of hope. She picked up the paperwork and began to read, knowing that this was a chance to rewrite her story. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be perfect. But it would be hers. Resolution Maggie's life had changed forever, but she was no longer afraid. She had a father who cared, a future that was hers to build, and a chance to make her own mark on the world. As she looked toward the future, she knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but she wasn't walking it alone. Isaac was there. And for the first time in her life, Maggie felt like she belonged somewhere. Months passed, and life continued to unfold in ways Maggie had never imagined. The car wash, now in Mary's name, had flourished under her steady hand, and though Hank's death had been a sad chapter, it was also the beginning of Maggie's freedom. She no longer had to live in the shadow of someone who didn't truly care for her. Instead, she built a life that was her own, full of possibility. Maggie's relationship with Isaac deepened. He wasn't just her father, he was the man who had given her the one thing she had craved her entire life: love. Not the kind of love that came with conditions, not the kind that would turn cold with every mistake. Isaac's love was steady and unwavering, even in moments of uncertainty. He was patient, letting her grow into the woman she was meant to be. Under Isaac's mentorship, Maggie's life took a dramatic turn. She worked hard, learned the ins and outs of the advertising company, and started contributing in ways she never thought possible. She wasn't just the daughter of a powerful man anymore. She was Maggie Lawrence, a force to be reckoned with in her own right. She went on to become a leader in the company, taking it in directions Isaac had only dreamed of. The future, once unclear, was now hers to shape. She had the power to make decisions, the power to create her destiny, and for the first time, she was living on her terms. Mary, who had once felt trapped in her marriage to Hank, found her own voice as well. She no longer had to hide behind her husband's cruelty. Maggie ensured that she had the support to start a new business of her own, away from the shadow of her past. As for Cassandra, she never truly changed, but that didn't matter to Maggie. She had learned to forgive, to let go of the pain, and focus on what truly mattered: herself, her future, and the family she had rebuilt. Maggie learned that true strength wasn't about surviving the battles of the past, but finding the courage to step into the future. She had done that. And now, she was living the life she deserved. And sometimes, when she walked through the glass doors of Isaac's office, looking out at the city below, she still couldn't believe how far she had come. From the girl who had washed cars in the hot sun hoping for something more to the woman standing at the helm of a thriving company with the love and support of a father who had come back for her when it mattered most. This was her story. This was her new beginning.